You've built an incredible community of people who really resonate, obviously, with the message that you've put out for the past decade. And one of the things that I stumbled across in my research for doing this about why potentially that is the case is you notoriously greet fans with a hug often enough that it have been labeled huggers by certain media outlets. Was there
Sure.
any thought behind this to embrace people, or is this just a natural thing that you guys did if the research is correct and you can't trust everything you read on the internet?
Yeah, I've hugged over 70,000 people now. Whenever we go out on a book tour, we will do some sort of hug line. And we didn't do this during COVID, obviously, but throughout ever since 2011, we've been hugging people. I remember our very first tour stop was in 2011, and we had 8 people show up at that first event. And then a few years later, we had 2,000 people show up in Sydney, Australia, and we'd stick around and hug all of them as well. I mean, there are times I've stuck around till 2 a.m. hugging lines of people, and I think it just breaks down the barrier in a way that it gets right to our humanity. And you realize that quite often we don't touch each other anymore, especially post 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand why. I was certainly terrified at first to I don't know anything about this, right? But even on our most recent tour, we do these things called Sunday symposiums in Los Angeles, and once a month or once a quarter, we just bring a group of people, a small group of people, 200 people, into a theater. And we always greet people with hugs. I'll go out into the crowd and before the event and hug people. I find it's a way to connect with someone right away. I mean, yeah, you can have a handshake or whatever. I always announce it, hey, I'm a hugger. I don't force hugs on anyone. But yeah, I find it's the way for us to connect immediately. If you want a quick way to connect with someone, it will throw them off too, because we're not used to doing it. And I think it makes everyone a little bit uncomfortable, including myself, because I feel uncomfortable making you uncomfortable. But I also recognize that discomfort is the place from which we grow.
I often find that there's such a difference between doing in-person interviews and doing them virtually. And you might find that as well. And one reason for that is that when you hug or when you're with somebody closer in connection, there is something that's happening. Have you given any thought to this, or what's going on when we're physically versus virtually connected?
Yeah. I've done some reading on it, and it gets back to the grounding thing as well, but there is certainly a connection with the electromagnetic frequency of being in the same room with someone. In fact, you walk into a room sometimes and you'll know, the energy just feels off in here. And I know I feel real woo-woo-y even saying that. I'm allergic to woo-woo nonsense. But you feel it. And there's no denying, and I don't know what it is. I mean, there's pulse electromagnetic frequencies that the earth emits, and I totally get that, and I know you can prove those things with science, but who cares? Set that aside. How does it make you feel? And you're right. I'm doing this with you remotely. I almost never do remote conversations like this. I generally prefer to do something in person whenever we can. But I wanted to honor this commitment with you, and I was certainly willing to chat with you. But whenever we can do the things in person, it's just so much more electric. You feel it. And in fact, with the Minimalist podcast, I think we've done maybe 2 remote interviews ever, and Kapil Gupta was one of them, and it's just because he doesn't travel, he doesn't appear on camera, and so he's had the most profound effect on the way that I think and the way that I don't hold on to beliefs. So it made sense to do something remote with him, but by and large, and we have people all the time who I'd love to have on the show, but they just aren't in LA, and so we just don't have them on the show because we don't you lose something when it's remote.